What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So I want to talk about two different things today. I want to talk about this state senator out of Ohio. He posted a tweet. It was not an intelligent thing to say, and we're going to follow up and take a look at this tweet. Also, I want to take a look and a listen to Peter Navarro. He was an aide to former President Trump, and he's pretty much talking about the 2020 election. I know I don't like going back and talking about the 2020 election, but I think it's interesting, the exchange between him and a reporter and what this can mean for the future if Peter Navarro actually got his way, if he got what he wanted. So that's what we're going to discuss today. But first off, on this channel, we talk about financial news and what's going on in Washington, D.C. If that sounds like something interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell notification. That way you'll get notified anytime we put out a video. And like always, if you see my name and a picture of me in the comment section, make sure you see a check mark next to my name. That check mark signifies that it's me. If you do not see that check mark, it's not me. It's someone trying to impersonate me. Okay, so let's talk about this first story here. I just found this really, really interesting. Just coming off, I showed you a tweet a couple of days ago, and here's another tweet. So let's take a look at this tweet, and then we'll talk about it. Inflation has wiped out the entire value of the stimulus checks you received. Okay, so he's talking about the stimulus checks, all three stimulus checks. So that's about, what, $3,200 if you were able to get the maximum amount. So $1,200 the first stimulus check, $600 the second stimulus check, and then that third stimulus check was $1,400. And so we're looking at $3,200, and he's saying that inflation has already wiped that out. And so it's easy for us to look at this. I mean, this is one of those things where we're getting the consumer price index. It's at 7.5%, which is high. It's very high. But 7.5%, if you just look at that, and let's just take the last stimulus check that we received. Okay, that last stimulus check that we received, $1,400. If you take 7.5% of $1,400 is nowhere near $1,400, right? It would have to be 100%. And so because we're looking at the 7.5% year for year, that's what we're looking at. Now, if we go back even further, it was a little lower. Inflation was a little lower at that time. It was more around 6.2% or so. So that's what we're looking at when it comes to this whole thing. But you have politicians coming out here saying, look, your whole stimulus check is gone. You know why? It's because of inflation, which is not the case. It's just not the case. That's just false. Okay, that's just not. He's lying to you, basically. Okay, now this politician, and I didn't say his name here. It is Senator Michael Rulli, and he is a state senator. Okay, so he's not a U.S. senator. There's a difference. So he's in Ohio. He's a senator in the state only. Okay, he's not at the U.S. Capitol. But nonetheless, this is the information that we're getting from politicians, just coming out and flat out lying to you and telling you, look, your stimulus check is gone, and guess what? It's because of inflation. Now, the angle here is, look, inflation is just taking over. Now, I agree, inflation is bad. It is very bad right now. We're looking at numbers that we haven't seen in 40 years. Although 40 years ago, it was twice what it is today. Okay, so it's 7.5%. 40 years ago, it was at 14.6 or something like that percent. So we are looking at real bad numbers now, but they were even worse before. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about inflation in the future, because I think this is very crucial. I know talking about the different legislation that they're talking about moving forward with is important, but this is equally important, if not more important, because this is money. Every time that you go to the grocery store, every time that you go fill up your tank, you're paying more, and that's something that needs to be taken care of. And so some politicians right now are saying we need to handle inflation first. I mean, Senator Manchin's saying this. We need to handle inflation first before we start focusing on some of this other legislation that they want to get through. So I just wanted to put that out there, just so you know, there are different politicians out there. Research everything they say, because they're going to lie to you. They're going to lie to you because they have something politically to gain by doing that. And this politician is clearly doing that. And so make sure you follow up when these politicians say things. Make sure you do your research. You find out, are they telling me the truth, or are they just flat out lying? And in this case, this politician is just flat out lying. Okay, so we're going to take a look and a listen to Peter Navarro. Now, Peter Navarro, he was an aide to President Trump, former President Trump. And they're talking about Vice President Pence and the power that he would have. And they're basically saying, Peter Navarro saying that Vice President Pence had the power to at least send those votes back to the states that, have them do a recount. I don't know exactly what they wanted the states to do because the state certified all the votes. And we're talking about the 2020 election, of course. And so the reporter asked Peter Navarro a very, very interesting question. And Peter Navarro couldn't answer it and got a little agitated because he didn't want to answer it, basically. So we're going to go ahead and take a look in the list. And I think this is a really interesting exchange. Here we go.
Sure. To put a final note on this section, it would follow from your contention that you think Vice President Harris will ultimately have the call over who should be president, regardless of the results in the next election?
See, you misconstrued the whole Green Bay sweep plan. It's not for the vice president to determine who wins, okay? The only thing that Pence had the authority to do is go back to the states and let the states look at the votes. It's the states in our Constitution who have the right to decide who won an election.
But you're not answering the question. It seems like the question, when you put it on Harris, makes you, Peter,
to ask for a second.
Yeah, it seems like it makes you, but it seems like it's making you stretch when we just change the name from Pence to Harris. Are you holding the contention? Wait, let me finish the question. You'll get to respond. Peter, let me finish the question.
The authority to change the election results.
Let me finish the question.
That was not the premise of our argument. Ari,
so
the
under your premise,
was simply,
Peter,
let's take a second look.
Right. So let's say that under your contention, Vice President Harris could take any states that her side lost and selectively send those back. That's your current contention?
If any vice president under the Electoral Count Act of 1887, if there are objections that are raised about a state's electors, the provision is that you have 2 hours of debate in each chamber, and at the end of that, you have the ability
you're an outspoken
to send
individual.
those
Was that a yes? Because I didn't hear a yes. Is that a yes for Harris?
No, the way you frame the question is wrong. You're assuming that the vice president had the ability to determine the outcome. Wrong. All the vice president had was the ability to go back to the states to have them look at the votes again.
Okay, so very interesting exchange, right? Now think about it this way. And basically what he's saying, he never answered the question. He never answered yes or no, right? But let's look at it this way. And you have Peter Navarro really fighting for this. Vice President Pence had the authority to send it back to the states, to have them revisit it, recount it. The states had already certified the votes. So they had already counted and recounted if they needed to, and it had already gone through the court system in certain states, and they went ahead, certified it, and sent it to the vice president. But let's look deeper into this, because basically what Peter Navarro is saying, let's say in 2024, President Biden runs for re-election and he loses. Does that mean that Vice President Harris can send those votes back to those states where he lost? Do you think Republicans would be okay with that? I don't think so. I think there would be uproar. And let's go even a step further. Let's say President Biden does win 2024, and then now we're looking at 2028. 2028, Vice President Harris, she says, you know what? I'm going to run. She runs. She loses. She loses the race, but guess what? She's the vice president. So now, theoretically, if you listen to what Peter Navarro is saying, she can send votes back to be recounted in states where she wants them to be recounted. So that's what they're talking about here, and that's how ridiculous this is. I mean, it really is that the fact that we're still discussing this stuff now. Peter Navarro is coming out and still going at this when, I mean, the election is over. I mean, President Biden's been there for a year already, and I mean, you still have people who think that President Biden is not a legitimate president or what have you. But you see how this can go. This can go to a situation where Republicans never win again. Because you can have the vice president, which Vice President Harris can just step in and say, you know what, these votes are going back to this state, these votes are going back to this state, and we're not going to count those votes, or we're not going to certify those votes because we think something fraudulent happened. So the states are going to have to do a recount, and if they do a recount, we're going to make them do another recount and just hold it up in the court. Well, I don't know exactly what the end game is when it comes to this, but you see how this it just doesn't make sense. You could have a situation where Vice President Harris runs for president, loses, and then goes ahead and sends those votes back to the states. So I mean, it's really, really ridiculous. But Peter Navarro, he got pretty fired up, and he didn't know how. He didn't want to say yes when it came to Vice President Harris, but he says yes in a minute when it comes to Vice President Pence. So I want to know what you guys think about this, because I think it's just crazy. It's comical, and I mean it shouldn't. We shouldn't still be having this discussion. But the fact that you have Peter Navarro still adamant about how Vice President Pence should have handled this, it's really ridiculous. But I want to know your comments down below. Well, that's all I have for this video, but let me know your thoughts about the topics we discussed today. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one.